If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet. I'm glad that we have Tim Durrheim with us today. He's a former South African police force member. He's known to me. We actually served together. I consider him to be a very good policeman. And he said to me, well, come on this show. Thank you for that, Tim. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your time. But sadly, we had problems with the internet in East London. And so how we're doing this one is the same what we did with Colonel Saki Mare for the Parachute Battalion. I would record the questions. I would send it to Tim. He would answer by voicemail or put a little bit of a picture or two of him. And then he will answer us like that. So let's go. Tim, welcome to the show. Thank you once again. Can you tell me, where were you born? What made you join the SAP? I understand that you were chosen one of 56 across the entire South Africa to do some training and to meet some people as a junior reserve policeman. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Good day, Chris. Thanks for having me on your show. To answer question 1, where I was born. I was born in the coastal city of East London at the age of around about 9 years old. My parents moved to King Williamstown, a small little town inland, and we stayed there approximately 6 or 7 years when my parents moved back to East London. I was fortunate that my older sister was employed by the SAP in King Williamstown as an admin clerk. So through her, I got to know a lot of policemen in King, befriended them, and once they knew my passion about the police force, they would often take me for a ride in the police van, and I would walk beat with some of the guys when they were walking beat in town on Saturdays mornings. So yeah, I got to know quite a few of the guys. I befriended an old sergeant who worked there in King. So when we had moved back to East London, I would often go up for a weekend to this old sergeant and spend the weekend with him and work with him. He'd take me out in the van, or if he was working in the charge office, I would sit in the charge office with him and assist him where I could. Also at that time, in the early 80s, the police stations were guarded by a police member. So if it was a night shift and things were a bit quiet, I would sit outside with the camp guard or station guard, and we would walk around the police station every now and then to make sure everything was safe. And I thoroughly enjoyed just being in the company of policemen. They were my heroes. I thought they were doing a good job. And whenever I could spend time with them, I did. We later, when we moved back to East London, the police started the junior police reservists, and I was one of the first guys to join the junior reservists. So officially, I could now work with the police, which had been my passion since a young age. There were quite a few of my friends that also joined at the same time. and we worked at our closest police station, mine being Cambridge Police Station in East London. And we I spent most of my weekend and school holidays at the police station. It was all volunteer work. We weren't paid. We didn't receive a uniform. We were given a badge and an appointment certificate to identify us as police members. And we worked with the permanent members doing what they did. Worked quite a bit in the charge office, which was basic police work. You had to record accident details when people reported an accident, and things like that. But we also went out on patrol. We worked in the radio control room, which was at that stage also based at the Cambridge police station. And we done normal duties where we were needed. Yes, Chris, I was one of two guys chosen from East London to go up in the June school holidays to Pretoria, to the police college, for a week to experience more what police life and training was all about. We went up by train, and we got to Pretoria. We were issued with camouflage uniforms, which was what the student constables were being trained in. And we went to the police museum. We stayed in the police college. We also went to Milieuscoop, which was the police counterinsurgency training base. And we overnighted there. We partook in a couple of exercises, threw practice grenades, done a bit of shooting. And then we went back to the police college. A highlight of that week was that we had tea with the police commissioner, General Geldenhuys. And there were 36 of us chosen throughout South Africa to partake in that week. So I was very privileged to be able to go. And when we came back, I could tell my mates who were junior reservists with me what it was all about and how the college was. We were very fortunate to have been given that opportunity. I continue to work every weekend and school holiday thereafter till December that year, which was 1982. I received an exemplary certificate from the police for my services as a junior reservist. I put in long hours. Sometimes I think I worked more hours on a weekend than what the permanent members worked the whole week, because I would go from school to the police station at about 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I would work right through Friday night, Saturday night, and go home for Sunday. My parents wanted me to attend church and Sunday school, which I did, but I put in long hours from Friday afternoon right till Sunday morning every weekend. And school holidays, I was there basically every day from morning right through to the night. During my time as a junior reservist, we made lots of arrests, mainly for petty crimes, such as drinking in public, urinating in public, drunkenness, gambling. And we also made more serious arrests, such as housebreaking, suspects that we arrested. We performed roadblocks duties quite often, where we would man the roadblocks, search vehicles, and yeah, we worked with the dog unit members occasionally, and that was a highlight for me, because the dog unit was the response unit, if I could call it like that, of the police in East London. There was no flying squad at that time, so the dog unit was the unit that responded to crimes, serious crimes in the East London area. I remember another duty that we often performed was to visit vacant houses. Members of the public could phone the police and report when they were going away for a weekend or for a holiday, and then the police would go and visit that house during their absence and make sure everything was fine. So we were used a lot in that capacity to visit the vacant houses. There was a register that we had to sign after each house was visited. We would sign a register as proof that we had been there. And if there was any comments, we had to note them down, such as broken windows or leaking taps or such like.
After you came back from the Junior Reserve Police and I suppose you finished school and then you joined the SAP. Can you tell us where you joined the force and what happened to you as a student constable? And can you tell us a little bit about the police college? Because I can tell you people listening here, if you don't know, the police college is really not like the police academy movies. It's basic training, it's boot camp, and it's thorough. It takes 6 months. So Tim, please tell us about your time as a student constable, as well as the South African Police College. You would have gone to the one in Pretoria, as did I, a few years after you.
Okay, Quiz, to answer question 2, yeah, I finished up with the junior reservists in 1982. In December, I joined the South African Police permanently as a student constable. And I served at Cambridge Police Station as a student constable for December and early January 1983. We went up to Pretoria to the South African Police College. We left by train from East London, so it was tearful goodbyes to family and friends, and off we went with the train. It was a day long 24-hour journey approximately. I think we left on a Saturday and arrived at Pretoria on a Sunday. We were taken by buses, if I can remember correctly, from the railway station in town to the police college on the outskirts of Pretoria, in Pretoria West. And then we arrived at the police college. I can remember we all had to assemble on the parade ground. You must remember we were still civilians, really. We were in civic clothes. We weren't issued uniforms at that point. And we were divided up into groups and told by instructors where we would be staying, allocated to bungalows. And we went, each group, to the different bungalow we had been allocated to. I can remember entering the bungalow, which was going to be my home for the next 6 months, and was dished out some bedding by a stern-looking instructor. Sheets, blue sheets, blankets, and pillow slips, and told to go to the middle floor of my building. And on reaching my floor, I met up with a few guys that had arrived before me, and they were just lying on the beds. We gave each other a bit of a greeting, but I think all of us were at that stage a bit nervous, fearing the unknown. We had heard from the old policeman back at the station a little bit about college, so we knew more or less what to expect, but it was a shock for a young guy. I was still 17 years old to arrive there, and you knew your home was far away. East London is approximately 1,200 kilos away from Pretoria, so it was a big distance that separated you and the comforts of home, and it was a bit of a wake-up call for me. I think the first week of college went quite quickly. We had to form up outside our building at the blow of a whistle. So when the whistle went, we had to run and form up in the squad like place in front of our building, form up in our platoons, and we'd done a bit of PT, and we ran just about everywhere. We still hadn't been issued with uniform. I think it was after the first week or so, we were taken to the police quartermaster stores, which is also in Pretoria, but not on the same premises as the police college. So we went to the quartermaster, and we were issued a big metal trommel with all our uniforms, our summer and winter uniforms, and our camouflage uniforms, etc. And we were issued with firearms. My service pistol was a Walther P38 9mm, and we were given a R1 or rifle, which was also issued at the same time, I think, which was stored in our trommel back at the college, which was positioned next to our bed. I think my 6 months at police college were the longest 6 months of my life. I didn't enjoy being there. We became very fit, very fast, and we done a lot of physical activities. Wherever we went, we had to run in a platoon formation to the mess, to the parade ground, to your classes, to musketry. Wherever you went, you ran in your platoon. We were also taken what was called a bus tour. I think it was during our first few weeks there. We went on a bus tour of the college, and believe you me, it's a bus you don't want to catch again. It wasn't a physical bus. We were formed up in our platoon, and we had to run all over the college, and the instructor told us where everything was. So that was the bus tour that we received. And one of the highlights of the bus tour was Hospitaalbult, or Hospital Hill in English, which was where the hospital was situated, on top of a hill, and we had to run up this hill to get to the hospital. So it wasn't very funny at that stage of the game. Police college, you got up very early in the morning. You had to ready your bungalow for inspection. Thereafter, you would go to the mess halls, which were on the one side of the college. So you had to run from your bungalow to the mess halls in platoon formation, stand in a long queue when you arrived there, and were given breakfast. And then after breakfast, you ran back to your bungalow and got what you needed for the next period. Your day was divided up into periods, so you could have academic lessons, or drill, musketry, or PT, depending. Each platoon had their own schedule that they worked to, but you went to your next period after breakfast. You would stand, the whole college would stand parade, morning parade, where you would have prayers and announcements were given for the day. Thereafter, you were dismissed from the parade ground and went to your different classes, which you had to attend. We had police, law, English and Afrikaans, police administration, investigation of crime, were some of the subjects that we were taught in the academic section. And then we also done musketry, where we learned all about different firearms, and the practicalities of using a firearm and so forth. At a later stage, once we had done the theory with the firearms, we were taken to the shooting range, where we done the practical side of it. We were trained in the 9mm Parabellum pistol, the Walther P38, just after I'd been in college, they started issuing the Beretta, but we were given the Walther P38. We had the HMC submachine gun. We had various shotguns, pump action, and the automatic Browning shotgun, which we were taught how to use. And when we went to the shooting range, I think every policeman who went through the college at that stage would know what I'm talking about. The instructors threw a bit of tear gas, which we had to go through to experience what it was like, the effects of the tear gas. And I can assure you it's not a very nice experience. After the first 6 weeks of college, we were given weekend passes. It would alternate, one weekend off, one weekend on, and your pass started from 6 o'clock Saturday morning till 10 o'clock Sunday night, and you were free to leave the college then and go do what you wanted to do. But I was not able to go home due to the long distance, so would just, when it was my turn to be on pass, go into Pretoria to one of the favourite haunts of the policemen, which was Sterreland, where there was movie houses and ice rink, and we would just enjoy ourselves, glad for the break that we had from the strict college life, and eat what we could eat or what we could afford in those days, and just enjoy ourselves and have a bit of a break. There was also a Portuguese-owned little cafe just below the college entrance, which we all knew as Quis Kokorot. And the weekend that we were not on pass, we would ask our friends who were on pass to go and buy us slap chips and barbecue chicken, which they would bring back to us. So we could also have a break from the college meals. College was very strict, so we needed that break just to get away and rest and relax a bit without being shouted at by instructors. So we really enjoyed our past weekend, although sometimes if we didn't perform up to the instructor's way, we would have our pass cancelled. Like I said before, the college life was very strict. We would be awake early in the morning, stand in inspection at our bungalow, work right through the day, run in between classes, stand guard duty at night, and we also had to study for our academic lessons. We were tested, and we had to do study every evening. I think from 7 till 9 was study, and then at 10 o'clock we would have roll call outside our bungalow. We had to form up, and we were often chased around by the instructors when guys were making a noise at roll call, and then we were chased back into our bungalow and told to put winter's uniform on. And once we had put the uniform on, we'd run downstairs back to the parade ground, and then we're told to put our summer's uniform on. So back up to the bungalow and change into summer's uniform. And so we were messed around for an hour or so, running up and down, changing uniforms. And then at the end of that, we had to still pack everything away and be ready for inspection in the morning. And inspections were held whenever the instructor felt like it. If he felt like coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning for inspection, then we had to be ready at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it wasn't a very pleasant experience, especially for a young guy who was used to the comforts from home to suddenly be pushed into this situation. But you became a man very quickly, and you learnt discipline very fast as well. Every week we had haircuts by the barber, and if you tried to jippo one weekend that you didn't cut your hair, you were quickly caught out by one of the instructors, and then you were punished for your misdemeanor. But college was 6 months, and it was, to me, the longest 6 months in my life. It was also during this time that I was at police college. We were there from January till July, and the Church Street bomb, which went off in May in the Pretoria, one of the military headquarter buildings, was blown up by some MK members, and there was 19 people killed and quite a lot of people injured in the bomb blast. And we were sent from the college to assist in the bomb blast scene, to cordon it off and things like that. I was on standby, our platoon. The other platoons that did go, when they came back, really told us gruesome stories of what they had seen at the scene. After our 6 months training was completed, we had a passing out parade, and then we were stationed to various stations. I was lucky to get the station that I'd chosen, which was King Williamstown. And we all, after completion of our 6 months training, after the passing out parade, we went to our different stations.
Right, Tim, so when you were done, when you passed out at the police college, and that doesn't mean fainting, it means there's a parade, the passing out parade. Some people did faint. We're all wankers, if you ask me, but it does not say such things. What happened to you, Tim? Where did you go to?
Well, Chris, the answer to question 3, I was posted to the King Williamstown straight after college, which was one of my stations of choice, because I knew the area, I knew the people, so I was very happy to get posted there. We arrived at the station and had to report to the station commander, who at that stage was a lieutenant. I reported to him, and then we had to check the duty roster to see which reliefs we had been posted on, and when we would start our duties. If I can remember correctly, I worked a morning shift, my first shift on, and that in those days we worked 8-hour shifts, which was from 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. We stood parade before we went on duty, and were checked by the senior member of the shift to make sure we had all our equipment, and our uniforms were clean and neat. And we performed duties accordingly where we were needed. I remember I was posted to beat, and it was a proud moment for me after all these years of idolizing policemen that I had finally reached that goal, and I was in uniform, still the old winter's uniform, which wasn't very practical, but it looked very smart. It was a blue tunic and light blue pants with black shoes, and then we had a combination belt, which definitely wasn't practical at all to work in. At the completion of my first shift of walking beat in town, I asked the warrant officer in charge of shifts if I could continue working. I think he looked at me as if I was a little bit mad, but in any case he said, no, it's fine. And he booked me on again, and I worked till about 6 o'clock that evening. So my shift was from 6 to 6, because I really enjoyed that type of work, and I was so proud of my uniform. In the first few months, we walked a lot of beat. We also went as the van passenger. The senior guy, he drove the van, and we would be the passenger. And of course the passenger had to do all the nitty-gritty work. If there was a shoplifting, you had to go in, collect the suspect, write the docket up, and the property that was stolen back to the client, and so forth. So as van passenger, you done all the work. Your senior, the Oman, he sat in the van. He was your chauffeur, and he done basically just the driving. But it was a learning experience, and we all had to go through that sort of initiation. At that stage, we were working 8-hour shifts, so we started with 2 night shifts, straight on to 2 afternoon shifts, then on to 2 morning shifts, and we had basically 3 days off. So it wasn't what we later changed to 12-hour shifts. It was quite a nice way of working, and we worked under the Omana. They taught us, they initiated us in the beginning. If you had to walk beat, they would set a faraway point and give you a certain time, and you had to walk to get to that point, and they'd be waiting there in the van and sign your pocketbook, and then they'd give you another point on the other side of town, which you would have to then walk at a brisk pace to get there, and they'd be waiting and sign your pocketbook on that side again. So it carried on for a few days, but then once we started learning the tricks of the trade, we weren't treated as harshly, but we were always known as a blowgat. We were allocated rooms in the single quarters, which was just behind the police station, and we each got our own room, and we ate. We had 3 meals a day. At that time, I think we were paying 12 Rand a month for accommodation, and Yeah, so we were right there at work. If there was problems and we were needed, they could also get us quickly. So all the single guys stayed in the single quarters, and the married guys stayed in the flats just next to the single quarters. There was flats for accommodation for the married guys. Working shifts, as we called it then, was enjoyable. You learned a lot. Each day was different. You didn't do the same thing over and over again. It was mainly to attend to complaints. Public would phone in, and then we would be dispatched if we were on the patrol van and go and attend to the complaint, whatever it was. Sometimes you got funny complaints, old ladies complaining of somebody on the roof. Meantime, it was perhaps just a branch blowing in the wind that was... I can remember a common complaint was the neighbors' dogs were barking. I don't know what the people expected us to do, to go bark back at the dog or to tell the dog to keep quiet. But that was quite a common complaint. People complained and phoned in. So we had to go and see why the neighbor's dog was barking and tell them that there's been a complaint and they must try and keep the dog quiet. And also we had to attend to motor vehicle accidents. If it was a serious accident where a crime was committed or there was injuries, we had to open a docket, which would entail drawing up a plan to the accident and investigating, do the initial investigating of the accident. And that was one of the complaints which I dreaded. We were in the unfortunate position that King Williamstown was surrounded by one of the homelands, namely the Ciskei, and their government vehicles were involved in a lot of accidents. So if a government vehicle was involved, we also had to do this CR accident, which involved drawing up of a plan. I would spend hours trying to get my plan right, but it never seemed to work out properly, and would have to go to one of the older policemen for assistance in drawing up my plans. And till this day, I still struggle to draw a plan according to scale of an accident. But the old guys were there to assist us, even though they done it reluctantly sometimes. But we had to complete our plan before we reported off duty. It was close to Christmas time, and I can remember I was working my last morning shift, which was from 6 till 2 in the afternoon, and roughly at about 12:30, 1 o'clock, we got a report of an accident. Somebody had been bumped off his bicycle, and I had to go attend to this accident. And because there was injuries, I had to draw up a plan. So I struggled. I went back to the scene a good couple of times, taking different measurements, and I think I left my shift at about 6 o'clock that evening, although I was supposed to have gone off at 2. But I was not allowed to leave until that plan had been completed. On Wednesday afternoons was sports afternoon, so we could go and practice the sports that we were playing at that time. Since I did not belong to a sports club, I took the easy route and decided I'm going to join the darts team because practice was done at the local pub. So on Wednesday afternoons, when it was sport afternoon, I would go down to the local pub and practice darts. And I wasn't very good at the darts. I was promoted to scorer. I wasn't very good at that neither. So I ended up just sitting at the bar and being a spectator while the other guys practiced. At a later stage, I did join Pirates, which was one of the clubs in town, and most of the policemen played rugby for Pirates. So it was the obvious choice for us young policemen was to follow suit and attend rugby practice with the older guys at Pirates Rugby Club. So many hours were spent in the clubhouse discussing tactics and techniques and really getting into training as such. So sometimes we would get back to the single quarters very late at night after a heavy training session in the clubhouse, and the following day we suffered the consequences of that training session. Another duty that we had to perform was to work in the charge office, and I definitely didn't enjoy doing that because you had to hand over everything to the next guy, and when you came on duty you had to receive all the stuff, prisoners' property, how many prisoners there were, and things like that, which complicated things because new prisoners were added, were arrested during your shift, and you had to add their property onto the existing list. So I really didn't enjoy working there, but fortunately I only spent 1 or 2 shifts in the charge office. You also had to do complaints, take statements if people came in with a complaint, and accidents, fill out accident forms, etc. So I wasn't very happy when I had to do charge office duties, but as I say, it was fortunate that it was very seldom that I worked there. When you performed as on the patrol van, you often attended an accident where somebody had been killed, and then you had to take that body to the mortuary, which wasn't a very pleasant duty, especially if it happened at night. The Omana would often play tricks on us and give us a fright. Either they would hide in the mortuary, and when we were opening the doors in the middle of the night to put a body in one of the fridges, they would be hiding inside, and as we opened up would give us a fright, and I tell you that wasn't a pleasant experience. My initiation period as a blowgat ended when the next new guys arrived at the station, which was about 6 months after I arrived there. So then they took over the position as blowgat, and I became the Oman. Now, when you've been given the status of Oman, you could now mess the blowgat around. So when they came into the mess and the Oman was there, busy eating his meal, you would often comment like who is this that smells of stores, and such other derogatory remarks that you could make to the poor blowgat. And you really treated him badly the first couple of days, just to make sure he knew his place in the hierarchy of the station. After hours, when we were enjoying ourselves either at the pub or having a braai, the blowgat had to braai the meat, he had to buy the drinks, had to fetch the drinks and such forth, until he again became an old man and the new blowgatter came to the station. All in all, it was good fun. It wasn't done in malice. We respected each other, and we treated other accordingly. But it was just part of becoming a policeman. You had to go through some sort of initiation. I was, after a couple of months working shifts, I was posted to the crime prevention unit, where we worked in civilian clothes, and we used to just try and arrest as many minor offences as we could in town, so that the serious offences would drop. So statistics showed that if you arrested a lot of the minor crimes, your more serious crimes dropped. Yeah, we would often book out the big old Bedford truck and move around town with that. I would stand on the step-in board next to the driver's door, and when we saw somebody committing a offence, I would hop off, go arrest them, place them in the back of the bakkie, and we carry on our way until the truck was full. So we would arrest approximately on a Friday, busy Friday afternoon, maybe 40 or so minor offences. Then we would have to go to the police station, to the charge office, and charge these guys and put them through the books, which took quite a long period of time, because each person had to be fingerprinted, and first information of crime form was completed, and it took a bit of time to process all 40. And then once we had finished, we would head back into town for the next load. A favorite gambling game was called Bunty, where the culprit took a piece of safety belt and rolled it up, and then you would stick your pen into one of the holes in this rolled up safety belt, and he would pull, and if he captured your pen, you got your money back, and if it didn't capture your pen, he got the money. So that was quite a popular game in my day, and the guys used to crook. They knew exactly how to pull that belt, so they would let you win one or two rounds, and then thereafter they would clean you out. So a lot of the old pensioners were robbed of their money in this manner. I used to wear an old overall, and then I used to walk around the market square where this game was played, and mingle with the people, sit in the taxis, and observe who was playing the game. And when the police van was observed, you just hear the scouts whistling and warning these guys that were playing the game to pack it up. Danger was in the area. but they didn't know that I was already there observing them, and I would just jump out the taxi and make my arrests and then call the van to come and load them up. Eventually they did twig on to my little trick, and they were very wary of me when I was on duty. There was also an alcoholic beverage called Macamba, which was also sold illegally on the pavements, and I would often go inside shops and just observe where these people who were selling the beverage were hiding it, and then I would walk out the shop and go and pounce on them and take them to the hiding spot, and they were quite surprised when I found their hiding spot so quickly. They couldn't believe that I was able to find out where they had hidden these macambas. It was always very nice to make a first schedule arrest, which is a serious offence arrest, such as housebreaking, and we would patrol the empty streets at night time. We would ride with our van lights off, or vehicle lights were off, so that we weren't visible, and we just go at snail's pace, driving around the neighborhoods with the hope of picking up housebreaking suspects. A trick that I also learned was to take my private vehicle and park it in town and wind the windows halfway down and leave some empty boxes on the back seat, and then I would position myself close by with colleagues of mine, and we would just observe until somebody was brave enough to see the boxes and attempt to steal them, and then we would pounce and arrest them. So that was done especially on month-end weekends when the town was very busy, and we would trap these guys in that manner. Month-end weekends were especially busy, the Friday afternoon and the Saturday morning, but in those days the bottle stores closed at 1 o'clock on a Saturday, so alcohol couldn't be bought after the bottle stores had closed until Monday morning when they reopened again. So Sunday was normally a quiet day concerning the minor crimes for us. But then we were surrounded by the Ciskei, which was a foreign country, if I can call it that, and we had a lot of problems with their defense force members and even their police members on a payday would come into King and get drunk, and there was a lot of problems through that. I would often accompany the detectives to collect or arrest suspects. The suspects were always in the Ciskei, and we had to get a Ciskei policeman to come accompany us in making the arrest. That was the protocol in those days, and we would hit them normally at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. The detective would inform me that he wanted to go out on a certain night and I must be ready, and then he would come pick me up, and we would go to wherever the suspect stayed, normally in the rural areas or the residential areas that surrounded King, and then pick up a Ciskei policeman at the nearest police station. and then go through to the suspect's house and arrest him. That happened quite often. I worked with one of the guys who I would say was one of the best policemen in King at the time, and he already had good information and knew where his suspects. In my time at King, there was always a good relationship between the members of the public and the police. We used to get on well together. They often gave good information and supported us in any way that they could. We got a lot of things at discount if we went into a shop. So we developed a good relationship with the community. I remember at one time we had to guard the magistrate's court. I think there was some elections that were going to be held there, and we had to guard the building the night before, so nobody could come disrupt the election. And while we were sitting outside this court building, I heard a noise coming from inside the court. And we had walked around the building. All the windows were locked. There was nobody inside. And this noise became louder as the town got quieter. So yeah, by 10:30, 11 o'clock, when there was no traffic, this noise sounded like a wooden bench being moved or pushed onto a wooden floor, and then it would stop. And my colleague and I couldn't figure out where this noise was coming from, but after a while we did figure it out, and we're quite amused when we found out what was causing it. I must say we used that to our own advantage in the future, when we used to inform the ladies that we were trying to impress that there was a ghost in the court building, and nobody would believe us. So we had to actually take them there in the middle of the night and let them hear for themselves. And until they heard the noise, they were very skeptical, but after hearing, they would flee screaming down the stairs, shouting, there's a ghost inside the court building. And we, of course, added to the story and told them that people had been sentenced to death in that court building, so maybe it was them feeling unhappy and all things like that. Little did they know that it was actually the workings of the clock in the tower of the court building, the chain that was moving, the mechanisms of the clock which made that noise.
Well, folks, that was Tim Durrheim. I can tell you, as I said in the beginning, he was a damn good policeman. He was sometimes misunderstood by some of the senior officers. He was English, of course, but that counted against him. I know that some people got very angry with me when I asked Colonel Mostert, who was SADF, I asked him if he ever felt discriminated against because he was English. He said yes. But then he went on and he also said that despite that, he achieved all the ranks that he could achieve. But some people were very unhappy with that. But I have to ask these questions. I have to know, because I do know, I do understand that sometimes the English people did feel a bit unwelcome. There's no use to deny it. The other thing I want to answer here quickly is I remember a few years ago I read a comment on my books, the Main Street's books, where somebody said he was bitterly disappointed because he couldn't figure out on which side I was. Now, if it's not clear to you by now, perhaps then you should go and listen to Colonel Potgieter, who was the commanding officer of both them and myself. You will find out that policemen follow the law. That's the side they are on. We're not on the side of you, we're not on the side of a criminal, we're not on the side of a government either. We follow the law. Now, folks, that's a problem, because if you have been a wrong law, like we had under apartheid, we're still going to implement that law. And therefore, we have to make sure that the laws we have in place in the country, wherever you are, is fair and just. Because if they're not, I assure you the police are going to follow that law and they're going to act upon it. There is no such thing in law, and I'm now speaking as a legal man. There's no such thing as an act of parliament which is just lying there. Once it's there, it will be implemented at some stage, which is a worrying thing if that law is unfair. Right, on that note, Tim, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming here. I expect quite a few questions from people. Please leave your questions below. I thank you for your right clicks, the thumbs up thing. I thank you for your comments. And please spread the word. And if you're a policeman and you're listening here, come and talk to us. It's time for us to speak up. If you don't speak up, then of course, the other side, their story will stand. So we have to come and tell our stories. So I ask every one of you, spread the word and come and talk to us. All are welcome. You don't need to have been in the flying squad or in the special task force or in the dark unit, the elite units. It doesn't matter where you were. We are interested in you. So thanks for everyone. Until next time.